It looked like a murky sea of mocha mousse down there, as if nature wanted to shroud the kingdom, the way the kingdom likes to hide its women under black burqa tents. Entering Saudi Arabian airspace comes with a tan blur of windstorms roiling the barren desert far below. Dr. Aflatooni snored fitfully into my left ear, ever since we had left London Heathrow 3 hours earlier. Ex-CIA physicist and wizard tinkerer Richard Smith seated behind us, his stench of a recluse ensuring nobody would sit next to him, held our tickets for this flight. The looming sale to the Saudis of one of Smith's inventions formed the purpose of our trip. Dr. Aflatooni assembled our team and put together the whole deal. Unfortunately, somewhat to the detriment of his neglected patients. Practicing medicine was not exactly his passion. Smith's invention, a computer circuit board, 3 inches by 3 inches, promised to forever foil computer hackers. The CIA used it to thwart and catch spies, Smith told us. I'm pretty sure we were not supposed to know that. I was also not sure Smith could legally sell this thing to foreigners, but best not to ask. It may have been the CIA's intent to get the device surreptitiously into Saudi hands, so maybe Smith was on a secret mission we would never know about. I also did not inquire where he had stowed the thing for this flight, whether on his person or in his luggage, whether to include it in his customs declaration. Hey, not my call, even though I was the designated lawyer for this team. A carefully maintained ignorance, especially in the Middle East, is often more valuable. Up in first class was the 4th member of our team, the Swiss Shetland buffalo meat millionaire, Cord Harm zum Spreckle. Cord was a jolly and affable man as long as the conversation managed to stay clear of money, a rather difficult task since he was Swiss. I believe the Swiss invented money. We were going to meet with none other than the Saudi Minister of the Interior, Prince Nazif, the country's top cop, and a close brother to the current king. Then we were going to come home rich. Our team had arrived at our respective agreed pay percentages before leaving Seattle, sealed in writing by me, ignoring conflict of interest, with all the requisite legal pomp, verbosity, and bullshit. It would require at least one other lawyer to decode it should ever a dispute arise. Thus did I make my living. At Heathrow, Dr. Aflatooni once again assured us the circuit board sale was as good as a done deal. Yes, there would be the expected haggling over price. It would be an insult not to engage in some of that. But the expected result, communicated through the back channels of palace intrigue, around $8 million, would be an acceptable price. I tried to avoid the math in my head about how much money that would mean for me, but I failed. Calculating a percentage of $8 million is not all that hard to do. A final detail needed to be accomplished, otherwise all was in place. All Prince Nazif needed to see was a demonstration of how the thing worked. It was just a matter of getting an audience with him timed right. Supplicants from everywhere hounded him day and night. Dr. Aflatooni, following his M.O. as instigator of exotic business opportunities, had 6 months prior found a local fixer in Riyadh, a Mr. Mohammed Abdul Fazul. Fazul would grease the skids for us for a modest fee. He knew the ways and customs of the royal family, and how to work, i.e. bribe, the right bureaucrats to bypass the usual red tape. Fazul's job was to get us onto Prince Nazif's calendar during the next day or two so we could close the deal, just in case things got complicated, as could happen given the whims and vagaries of the House of Saud. Meanwhile, although Cord Harm zum Spreckle was financing all the upfront costs of this enterprise, including travel and lodging, he decided to stay in his air-conditioned hotel suite for the duration of the trip. He didn't like the food. He didn't like the weather. He didn't like the way people dressed, and there were no women to be seen anywhere. His general take of things, which you didn't have to wait long to hear, was he thought all foreigners in general sucked. All night, there raged gusts of wind that blew sandblasts against the window in my room, making scratchy noises. My watch said 5 a.m. I gave up trying to go to sleep and went downstairs to the hotel restaurant, hoping maybe to find a self-serve breakfast buffet and a cup of coffee. I was surprised to see I wasn't alone. Dr. Smith, as Dr. Aflatooni instructed us now to call him in order to impress the Saudis, was asleep at the farthest table in the restaurant. I hoped I wouldn't awake him. That would probably mean conversation and his body odor for the duration of my breakfast. I grabbed a donut from the buffet and a cup of coffee. How he got up and behind me so fast is one of the world's greatest mysteries.
Don't eat the food here. It's likely to be poison. Just take my word for it. I brought along candy bars and you can have one of mine.
I had a sinking feeling he wanted to be my friend. He wanted me to try a candy bar custom made for him, how it would help me think better, but he was too late. A Saudi server was heading my way with a bowl of oatmeal. I didn't want to offend him by saying I hadn't ordered it, because maybe he was offering me a gift. He said something in Arabic, probably about enjoying my breakfast, so despite Dr. Smith's warning, I spooned myself some oatmeal.
Don't say I didn't warn you,
Smith said, now in a normal voice. I was in the mood for small talk or no talk at all in this morning that had refused to start. But Smith was a no-nonsense guy. He marched right in.
I suppose you will want to know at some point about my data lock device and why it is the definitive patented answer to all unwanted data compromises, be they invasions of single standalone PCs, faux VPNs to virtual machines, or hacks of an extensive firewalled network or what have you. I certainly can see why you would be interested.
Wow,
That's amazing.
I said just to say something. The oatmeal wasn't bad. He had things to say.
Since you have your part in the sale of my invention, and undoubtedly need to know how to describe it in the context of a contract we will no doubt present, I must brief you, though of course confidentially in this attorney-client communication,
Smith said, with the brisk tone of the professor speaking to his dullest student. I almost told him he wasn't my client, but then he might have stopped spilling the beans about his invention. I was $8 million interested in that. I added brown sugar and raisins to my oatmeal. I don't think they have oats in Saudi Arabia. I urged him on.
Well, yes, Richard. Tell me what you can about it. I just know it must be terrific. But I suppose you have to withhold certain key facts from me as official secrets. I can understand that.
Like not telling me he stole it, or this was all a CIA op.
the data lock is in effect a quantum computer, able to sense the presence of an intruding alien system nearby. If you pressed me to explain how my data lock circuit board works, I would have to give you the same answer any honest physicist would give. I don't know. It is the very nature of quantum mechanics that humans cannot grasp it, because our macro-level experiences are counterintuitive to quanta.
I was pretty sure he had more to say, so I just waited.
You must surely be aware of quantum mechanics, quantum theory, the mathematics of Gödel, and Turing and Feynman. The quarrels Einstein and Bohr had about the clash between the theory of relativity and quantum physics. Well, I guess I just could go on and on if I thought you were paying attention.
I was beginning to think physicists have a better bullshit kit at their disposal than lawyers do. I hope the Arabs do indeed want this invention as a security device. Hopefully we'll have this all wrapped up in 2 days. At any rate, I was in luck. Fate cut short my education from Richard Smith by the entrance of one very furious Cord Harm Zum Spreckle. He's the kind of guy you don't want to be around when he's angry. Smith and I got the hell out of there pronto. Despite the coffee, I was surely going to get a good night's sleep, despite the continuing sandstorm outside. as I reached the door to my room, I could still hear faint resonances of Cord Harm, some Spreckles rantings. He was bellowing, "Hello, hello, hello. Wo ist my Frühstück? I have called it in over an hour ago. Where is my breakfast? I called it in. Was anybody here?" He hadn't noticed Smith and me running away, so he was either yelling to himself or hoping someone from management would respond to his emergency. Cord went to a table in the far opposite corner, sitting in semi-darkness where, not too long ago, Smith had been sleeping.
Hello, hello, hello.
In time, a slight little man appeared, and the Swiss cattleman yelled at him,
"Where in the fuck is my breakfast? I called it in about an hour ago and still not here. Who is in charge of this pathical stand?"
The man held a mop and was dressed in obvious Indonesian or Pakistani garb and wearing the bellboy-type short hat they wear. He was clearly bewildered that Cord's rage was directed at him.
"Maaf, saya tidak mengerti Anda. Saya dari Indonesia dan saya bekerja di sini hanya untuk bersih-bersih."
Cord realized his error and started looking around the room for someone to intimidate.
I never should have got involved in any of this. I was on orders. Where's the management or nothing here? I'm writing a letter to Holiday, and this is unacceptable.
Fortunately, I was by now asleep through all this. The next day I learned about how Cord had so rudely frightened the Indonesian houseman. Even minor news spread fast in Saudi Arabia, I was told, and here was my first experience of that. Since everything our team spent money on was on Cord's tab, I now made it my mission to generously tip hotel staff whenever possible. 30%, I figured, was the appropriate jerk tax. Needless to say, the help staff began to fight over who would serve me. Now it wasn't as if our benefactor, Cord Harmsum Spreckle, the Swiss Shetland cattleman, pulled out all the stops in funding the costs of our expedition. He used a lot of accumulated frequent flyer miles to get us installed at Riyadh's Holiday Inn. Now, I'm not complaining. In fact, I was pretty happy to see on the room service menu that I could get Jack Daniels and Heineken's beer and a shrimp cocktail appetizer. Since alcohol was a forbidden thing in Saudi Arabia, this was obviously a gesture of international understanding, directed at the infidels. Cord had booked us in for what he thought would be more than enough, namely for 4 days. He correctly figured that the Saudi government would be as inefficient as ours, that it would take a time to get through all the red tape before a deal could be done. Little did he, or we, realize that it would take 2 weeks. That's right, 2 weeks. Young Prince Fazul, who was supposed to be greasing the skids, kept announcing we'd have a meeting soon, usually around 2 a.m. when the weather was better, only then to have to announce a postponement yet again. Various strategies were employed to combat the tedium and ennui. I tried taking a stroll in fresh air, but I was no sooner out the door when I hit a wall of 122-degree heat that drove me right back into the air-conditioned indoors.
This is not working. What was I thinking?
Dr. Smith was particularly afflicted by confinement in the Holiday Inn. The heat, or his special candy bars, got to him. He felt comfortable only if underneath a table in the restaurant. As a boy, the schoolroom exercise in anticipation of an atomic bomb attack was to crouch under a desk. In times of stress, he reverted to that behavior.
"What are you doing here? Don't look at me, don't look at me. I'm just doing my morning yoga."
Dr. Aflatuni, on the other hand, was used to multitasking, juggling accounts and managing deals that went sideways. So he got plenty of business done whenever the hotel manager was away from his office, and he could use the manager's phone to make expensive international calls and put them on Cord Harm Zoom Spreckles tab.
"Yes, Nancy, cancel all my appointments for next week. It looks like I'm here longer than anticipated. And send some flowers to my wife with a nice card. And if Victor calls asking once more for money from me, just tell him I'm at a conference and can't be reached.
As we waited night after night until 2 a.m. for a meeting that never happened, we killed time by playing endless games of Monopoly and bridge, getting the Indonesian houseman involved in a game he barely understood.
Why are we playing bridge with 2 decks with different colored backs?
As for Cord, after he wrote a stinging letter to the Holiday Inn CEO about the quality of their breakfast room service in Arabia, as he put it, he moved to the most expensive hotel in Riyadh, and we didn't see him again until it was time to check out of the Holiday Inn and have him pay the bill. I felt sorry for Fazul. He was being given the runaround by the Interior Ministry and was clearly humiliated in his failure as fixer.
I must apologize many times for all the delays we're experiencing. I don't know what's going on. I am sorry, maybe tomorrow at 2 a.m. I think we have another possibility.
When he offered to give us a special tour of Riyadh and dinner at his house, I felt there was no way we could turn him down. This was his way to try to make amends and to give us at least something for our time in Riyadh. Aflatuni and I took an overly air-conditioned taxi to meet Fazul in the historic district of Riyadh.
Fazil, hi, I want you to meet Lawyer Larry, great guy.
A pleasure to meet you.
My pleasure as well.
Hey Fazil, I really appreciate you giving us a little tour of Riyadh today since it doesn't look like the Interior Ministry has scheduled us yet, and I know you're doing everything you can about that.
Well, yes, it is disappointing. We cannot get an appointment with Prince Naziz. As you may know, this is the time of Hajj when many Muslims come to Mecca. That makes for security problems for the Interior Ministry, but perhaps we will be able to meet tonight around 2 a.m. inshallah.
So we saw some famous sights, an old fort made of mud and wood, another building, I forget what it was about, and a big old mosque. About then I was ready to melt in the heat. I was hoping we might bump into a McDonald's. Then we came upon an ominous, scary sight, the special platform for the public to witness beheadings every Friday night. That was apparently a major form of live entertainment, or rather, not so live.
Now this is where public executions happen every Friday. People who are convicted of crimes against Sharia are beheaded here by men with very sharp swords. I am sorry this is Thursday, so we will miss it, but perhaps we can come back another day.
But then came the best part. Dinner at Fazul's house, where I finally made contact with who these people are and how they lived. Fazul was justifiably proud of his beautiful family, and seeing how happy his guests were to be sharing in such a wonderful festive moment. Spoiler alert, as if you didn't already know. We never did have our meeting with the Interior Minister. The Hajj to Mecca that year was marred by disruptive riots from Iranian Shiite terrorists, for whom the Interior Minister had to devote all his time. But that evening with Fazul's family made the whole trip worthwhile. Dr. Aflatuni managed to make it to the airport before Cord Harmzoom Sprenkel returned to the Holiday Inn to settle the bill, which turned out to be astronomical. He wanted to shoot somebody, but apparently none of us sitting in the lobby of the Holiday Inn qualified. He plunked down a wad of cash at the checkout stand and stormed out. Thus ended my 14 days of Arabian Nights. Back in Seattle, Dr. Aflatuni called to tell me that Dr. Richard Smith was still in the hotel in Riyadh. The management wasn't able to get rid of him.
If somebody named Rudolph calls, tell him the fog in London is good this time of year.
Anyway, Dr. Aflatuni wanted to know if I was interested in trading legal services for a percentage in an ancient Inca diet drug being specially modified in Peru. I said, of course, count me in.